Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you are having a great Wednesday or whenever you are listening to this episode. Before we get started, I will ask, if you haven't yet, to leave a rating and or review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I just appreciate that so much, and it helps so much with the outreach of this podcast. Getting into today's episode, I'm so excited to introduce our guest, but before I do that, I want to catch up a little bit, talk about how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit, and just kind of bring you up to date on what's been going on. So this last week, honestly, was just filled with a lot of work-related things. I feel like my weeks kind of alternate on when they're busy and then when they're more calm, depending on when I have coaching calls. And so I did I had a couple grocery store navigation sessions this last week, drove to Lincoln for that, and then had coaching calls, led group exercise classes, all things that I love. And I've realized recently that there's not a day that I don't wake up that I don't just love the situation that I'm in right now. And I know that that is something that I should not take for granted, and it's not something that's realistic for everyone. And so although, yes, I understand that to be able to say that is a huge, huge blessing. And I will tell you, I was not there even a year ago. I was thinking back when I was talking to my friend Emily this last week too, and I was like, my life in the last year has changed so tremendously. There was so many days that I'd wake up and absolutely dread my job and just hate the environment that I was in. And I was pretty bitter and upset and just in not a great headspace during that time. But over the last even 8 months, I would say I've been extremely just blessed. And I realize how lucky I am to say that and to genuinely be so excited every morning when I wake up for the day ahead. And so realizing that has put a lot of the work I do day to day into perspective, just doing reflection on what life looked like whenever I was maybe not as happy or not as excited for getting up and going to work. To be there now is just an incredible thing to be able to say. But please find encouragement in knowing if you are the opposite, if you are maybe still in school or you're working a job that you don't love right now and it's kind of that in between, or maybe you're not working at all and you can't find a job. I would just say don't rush the process of getting to a point when you think you're going to be completely happy and life will be perfect, because my life right now is really, really good, but it's not saying it's perfect, right? I'm not saying every day is 100% best day ever, but if you're in a spot where you can't even imagine getting there, just know that there's a plan for your life, and that if you're not there right now, you're eventually going to get to that point. It is absolutely possible for you to do that and for life to look completely different, even as short as a month. It can look so much different. So please find encouragement in that. It's not me saying that to brag in any sense, but just find encouragement in knowing things can get better. Unfortunately, I didn't have the podcast for you to hear, and you wouldn't have wanted to hear me talk about my life when it was, just when you're not in as good of a headspace. You just are more down, and it's hard to want to be positive about the outlook of things. But just keep doing what you're doing, putting one foot in front of the other, showing up to work, and your life can truly transform pretty quickly. So just allow that to happen and allow opportunities to present themselves and be on the lookout for that as well. Other than just a week of work, this last weekend we went to see my husband's family, had family over for supper, had some friends over for supper, but really that's about the extent of it. I want to jump into how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit, because that also is just a good way for you to share, or me to share, what's going on or what's been happening. So how I'm nourishing my mind is, this is something I've shared on a few platforms, but I don't know if I've talked about on the podcast, is seeing the sun before I see my phone. That one thing has transformed my morning, and you probably heard that in last week's episode of my morning routine. But if you feel like mentally you're drained 24/7, you have no energy and you can't find the energy to truly want to do anything as soon as you wake up, go outside or even sit under a window where light is coming in and just let your body wake up with the sun rather than getting on your phone right away or scrolling even while you're laying in bed. Get that thing away from you and just wake up and get some fresh air. Let your feet touch the grass or whatever you need to do to feel grounded and energized, because I can promise that's not coming from your phone. And when I realized that and actually implemented that, it has been huge for just where my mindset is right away in the morning. How I am nourishing my body. This is kind of going to be a wide answer, but I've actually been using Mondays as my day to prep for the week ahead. So for a lot of people, that is probably Sunday. And, if you work a normal 9 to 5, then that totally makes sense. But for me, I like using Sunday as a day to truly relax, right? Our Saturdays are usually pretty full with either socializing or doing things around the house, whatever that is. And so to have Monday as my day to actually reset, right? I might have some coaching calls. I teach exercise classes in the evening, but in the morning, there's usually about an hour window where I can prep my sourdough and make a couple loaves. I can make more homemade cashew milk, which is the milk that I use because I'm lactose intolerant. Even grocery shopping, I did that this morning because I'm recording this on a Monday, and just got things around the house ready for the week ahead rather than doing that on Sunday. And so yes, you can obviously always do that on Sunday too. I like to do it on Monday because I just incorporate it into my workday. I find an hour where I can really utilize it and do some of those things. And then that way for the week ahead, I feel really grounded and ready for whatever is going to be thrown at me and whatever I'm planning around or planning for. How I am nourishing my spirit. I would say this truly is enjoying the time when I'm not busy. And there's examples that I'm gonna bring up with this too. Is on one day last week, and I can't remember what day it was, but I went and just spent some time with my grandma, and we did some Christmas shopping, gave her some ideas, and really we just hung out. We canned some soup that she was making, but there was a point where I was literally crying, laughing so hard because she is just so funny, and being with her is so re-energizing. And I think when we're able to really enjoy where you're at and put that phone away for an afternoon or an evening or a whole Sunday. I listened to a podcast recently about the Sabbath and utilizing the Sabbath as a true day of rest, not binging Netflix, not scrolling on your phone all day, but using it to fully rest mentally, spiritually, physically. And so even if I don't take a Sabbath or a true Sabbath, because I don't completely get off my phone for a whole day, although I'd love to be able to do that and work my way towards that. But just taking an afternoon with my grandma, not being on my phone at all, and enjoying and savoring every moment of that is something that just, it's absolutely changed how I view things, because I'm no longer scrolling Instagram when I'm with people and thinking, oh, I wish I was doing that, and that, because you're never going to be truly content with where you are. And so putting that phone on silent, not even looking at it when I'm in those moments that I know one day I will have wished I had back. And that's honestly any moment you're with somebody that you love, or a friend, or even just a new friend. Like when you're with anybody, those are moments that one day you're going to wish you had back. So enjoy them, turn off that phone. That is something I am currently loving to do. So today I have on Emma. She is going to be talking all about creating a holistic home and what that actually embodies. Her and her husband renovate homes together, and they do it in a way that is pretty unique. And she's going to share all about that and so much more. So regardless of if you have a home that you're wanting to renovate or remodel, or if you truly just want to create an environment that is health supporting, there are so many gems in this episode, and I know you're just absolutely going to love it. So without further ado, here is Emma. So Emma, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to to talk today.
Could you just share a little bit more about yourself, kind of who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I guess first and foremost, I describe myself as a wife. I have a business with my husband. We just started a business called Crimson Estates back in the spring. Actually, kind of a crazy story, but we secured a house the day that I went into labor with my third daughter, which was actually an extremely fast labor too. I had her in like 2.5 hours. So, like prior to that, though, we talked to this guy about obtaining the house next door, and we did. So we're in the middle of flipping that right now. But I guess back to your question, who am I? I'm a wife. I'm a mom of three little girls who I love so dearly. They're all under three too. So that makes the house pretty chaotic. Um, I describe us as a stay-at-home family. So my husband gets to stay at home with me. Every once in a while, he'll go and do like some part-time busing for the school system. But other than that, we're just working on the rental next door. I am a therapist as well, and that's kind of where we get most of our income. And I work out of my basement. So I'm a telehealth therapist. And I see clients kind of more in the central Nebraska area.
Wow. I love that you describe yourself as a stay-at-home family because I bet that's created a lot of really special connections too. You get to spend a lot of time with your spouse. I've even noticed that too. My husband works from home most of the time, and I do too. And you really do get to spend a lot of time together. And with you having your three daughters as well, how has that been in a family sense? Like, how has that been for your family to all be able to be together a lot of the time?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Like, and I think what's most special about it too is that when my husband and I get to go away, it makes it so special and incredible. Because we're with them 24/7. So there's not a ton of guilt when we like take the weekend off or whatnot, and we're able just like to let loose and have a lot of fun. But I love being with my family. Um, I don't know. It's just we're kind of in a routine. Um we're like each other's best friends. Like all of us. I love to, and I'm not knocking the daycare system, but I love to that I am with them for the majority of the day. Actually all the time. Like I'm there from wake up to bedtime. And I get to discipline them. I get to choose what they eat. I get to be a part of that in every sense. Um, and I know that this is a privilege, but I'm super grateful for it.
Mm. Yeah, and the lessons too that your daughters are learning with getting to be with you a lot
Mhm.
of the time too, and your husband. Um, I think too that that's so special because you get to spend a majority of the time, so you also get to influence them how
Absolutely.
you want them to be influenced.
Yeah.
Um, so you also mentioned that you started Crimson Estates. For somebody who is new to home renovation and that whole world, could you share a little bit more about how you got into that and where your interest came from?
Yes. So, I guess I've always kind of had an interest in design. I kid you not, when I was like had to have been a freshman in high school, so we're talking well over 10 years ago, I put wallpaper in my teenage bedroom. Okay. I kid you not. And now wallpaper is like blowing up. It's crazy. I painted my laundry room back in 2018, this really dark, moody green color, back when like white was really popular. And now guess what's popular? The moody colors. So I feel like I've always kind of been ahead of the trends a little bit. I absolutely love design, and where my heart lies too is very historical design. So my my husband and I's goal is to never come in and make a space look like HGTV barfed on it. It's like to come in and say, okay, this home was built in the 1940s. How can we make it look like a 1940 cottage? You
Yeah.
know? So that's kind of what we're doing with the place next door.
Yeah, and that's so unique too, because like you had said, everything, I mean, not so much anymore, but it was like white everything. Like what let's whitewash the walls or do shiplap. And
Yeah.
it didn't really necessarily even fit the home.
Right.
So connecting like with the age of the home and creating the space to look or reflect at least what it would have done or what it would have been when the
Mhm.
house was built.
Yes, yes. And that's kind of my take on design too. But hear me out. I do like trends sprinkled like here and there every once in a while, but usually I like to speak to the home.
Yeah. So what is that design process then for you? So with that house that you're renovating now, if it was built in 1940s, you had said.
Mhm.
So how do you go about designing this space to really match the era?
Yeah. So I don't know why I have a really good timeline in my head of like when the home was built and what it looked like. That probably comes up with a lot of studying on Pinterest and whatnot. But for this home in particular, there were little hidden gems in it. So when we were tearing out the bathroom, we had to because like the whole place was covered in smoke. There was a like tar, like there was a smoker that lived in there for 40 years. So we had to come through and completely gut the place, which I'm not necessarily proud of, but it's going to be really, really good at the end. Regardless, when we were getting the bathroom, we found wallpaper. And if you look at what we found, it was like this little dainty flower pattern. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to put dainty flower pattern wallpaper somewhere in the bathroom. Um, a lot of the colors. So we found mint green, pinks, and then like a light blue. So we'll probably incorporate those somewhere. Um, yeah, I'd say that's probably about it. Just like studying Pinterest. You can look up 1940s kitchen and it'll come up with a whole bunch of things. So,
Yeah. And it's like using even those scraps. Like you probably had to dig maybe to find like what was the original character of this home, but then even using those as your inspiration is such a unique way of doing it. It's not you going in with the mindset of like, this is what I want it to look like. I'll just make it look like that, but rather like you
right.
actually took the time to find the wallpaper behind all the layers of tar or paint or whatever was there, and then kind of create your vision around that.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted so badly to do custom tile in the bathroom. And then when they quoted me about $50 per square foot, I was like, oh no, it was going to be like a $2,000 bill. And I'm like, I can't do that. So we're going to try to recreate that on a budget.
Yeah. So let's go into that too. How do you do this on a budget? Because I know like that can be a huge factor for a lot of people. I mean, we're fresh into the renovation too, and we were renovating a kitchen, and you like start seeing the bills come in, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't even fathom like a countertop really costs that much? So how do you renovate on a budget? What are some of your tips for that?
Yeah, so I was kind of talking about all these questions in advance with my husband, and I think he brought up a really good point. He just said, take it like small steps at a time. So if you fully gut something, be prepared for that to be double what you think it's going to be. And I kid you not, like, so we call our rental next door Jermaine. Jermaine, we we were so naive. We thought it was gonna be like a 20, I think we estimated for like $20,000. Okay. Boom, we were gonna be done. Do you know how much our electrical bill was? Or like to get an electrician in to do all the things?
Oh, I probably don't even want to know because I
Okay.
know we have to do.
Yeah. So this is a 400 square foot house. Okay. So some bedrooms are this size. And mind you, right, like we had a lot of sconces, whatever, all the things, $12,000.
Jeez. Yeah.
So, yeah. Now he said that that was on the very high end, and he's only charged us six so far. So we're hoping, and he's done with everything. So we're hoping to walk out with maybe like an $8,000 to $9,000 bill. But regardless, like, that's huge. So back to like how to do this on a budget, take baby steps. Don't gut a room if you can't afford it to be double. When Jaden had his job loss back in, well, no, I'm going to reframe that. He walked away from a toxic job. I'm so proud that he did that. When that happened though, I couldn't stay away from DIY. I feel like that was kind of my way to cope with things. And so in our kitchen, we overlaid it with excuse me, with concrete. You can do like a feather finish overlay over laminate countertops. That's what we did. It's actually still there today. And despite all of the kids beating on it, like it hasn't chipped. And I'm actually very impressed. It's been about like 2, 3 years.
Wow.
Um, we also, what else did we do to the kitchen? Painted the walls, you know. Um, there's really simple things you can do. Like if you don't like the color of your tile in the bathroom, you can paint that. If you don't like the light fixture, like get on Facebook Marketplace and see what you can find. So thrifting is another thing I was going to say too. That was huge for us and still is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's finding, I think we underestimate too, like paint can make a huge
Oh,
difference
yes.
to a home. And you even mentioning painting tile, that's something I would never think about doing, but it's so smart. If I guess the paint would have to be certain durability maybe if you're going to have it, but at the same time, like those changes you can make for pretty little cost comparatively to, like you said, getting all new tile for the
Yes,
bathroom, which would have been expensive. I mean,
absolutely.
when it comes to Facebook Marketplace and thrifting, what are some things that you look for when you're wanting to renovate?
Such a good question. So I have no idea why I can't sew, but I always gravitate towards the fabric section. I don't know why. I just love like dainty fabrics. I can't tell you the last time I've actually bought in a curtain. So what I do is I just get those like little clips and I just use fabric for that. Another thing that I'm constantly trying to be on the lookout for is light fixtures. I love like old brass light fixtures, so that's my jam. What's another thing? Probably rugs. Those are huge. I know that that probably sounds disgusting to some people, but they wash up fine. They're totally good. So I actually just recently bought a rug off of a thrift store floor that had like the lady was 90 years old when she gave up this antique shop. So it's been there a long time and we just washed it on our driveway and it's sitting in our living or not in our living room, our dining room now. So yeah, that's I don't know why. Those are just the things. Textiles, it seems like textiles and light fixtures.
Yeah. And those textiles too, they require you to maybe be like kind of stretch your creativity. Like
Mhm.
how can you incorporate them if you're not going to use the fabric to sew, using them as curtains? That's genius. Like
Right.
with those, I've definitely seen like those cute, like on Pinterest, like that's where I feel like a lot of people go for inspiration. I've seen those before, but never thought to like thrift the fabric instead of purchasing it brand new. That also then adds character. And like we were talking about bringing back in maybe the age of a home, it's like
Yeah.
getting actual fabric from that time period.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Um, you can't tell I'm like smiling. Like this is totally up my alley. I love speaking into the home and like the era that it was from. So yeah, cool.
Yeah. I love to see how passionate you are about it too. Like when somebody talks about something they are passionate about, like you do light up when you talk about it.
Mhm.
And that's so fun to see. And I know people listening can't see that, um,
Right.
but you truly do. And even you talking about it, you can tell it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah. And sometimes that brings up a good point. Like sometimes I question, okay, I'm not making any money on Instagram, but at the end of the day, I still love to share this with people. And I know that someday I'll get there, right? Like if I continue to post and whatever, my followers will grow, brands will find me or I'll find brands. But yeah, I do have such a passion for it. And I think that's why I keep up with Instagram. So,
Well, yeah, and that's how I initially found you too. And what you do share on there is so quality. And it's
mm,
like, I mean, millions of people should be seeing what you're putting out because there's so much value behind it. I mean, there truly is. And like when you're in that position of like just starting renovation and you're like, I don't know how to do anything, to find accounts like yours is super valuable because it makes you think, okay, it is realistic. Like I can do this myself, not to the extreme that you're doing with, is it Jermaine, your house?
Jermaine. Yeah.
The full gut, okay, I'm not quite there, and I don't know if me and my husband ever will be, but to see even like I know you did a painted wallpaper. It's like instead
Mhm.
of buying wallpaper, you painted a design on your wall that you had painted.
Mhm.
And that was something too. I'm like, oh my gosh, like hanging wallpaper seems like a daunting task. And then if I decide I don't like it, that stresses me out even more. So to see that option, it was like a light bulb moment, like, oh my gosh, I could add a lot of character to a space without having to actually hang wallpaper.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If you're interested in the hand painted wallpaper, there's a girl on Instagram that I follow. Her name is Cheryl. Oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on her handle right now. It's what? Maybe it's just because I call her by first name. I'm gonna get that up right now. But she is the queen of hand painted wallpaper. I mean, she's done shiplap, flowers, just everything. Give me a second. I have to tell you now. Okay, so her name or her handle is r.home.on.greenleaf.
Okay. Well, I know on your page you also talk about creating a holistic home. Can you talk about what that maybe means to your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is such a huge question because it encompasses so many things. I guess where to start with this. I know I mentioned this earlier, but I'm a mental health therapist. So went to college for it, got my degree. Obviously, I'm doing it now. Um, Mental health has really been a big part of like my story. Not that I've necessarily struggled with anything, and I'm very, very grateful for that, but I just see the importance in it. So it kind of started there. And then when we had kids is when this whole concept of like having a holistic home really hit home for me because I started to realize that everything impacts not only your home, but it impacts the people inside your home, right? So if you're coming home after a long day and you're extremely angry, like what do you need to deal with in order to not do that? In order to not bring that into your home? Like, is there grief? Is there frustration? Is there a secret addiction that you're dealing with that like is just totally taking over your life and you need to tell someone? Um, I started to look into products a lot too. So like I started out with cleaning products in particular. I got rid of all the Clorox, all the Windex, um, all of the name brand products that are just, they have a lot of crap in it, a lot of chemicals that are cancer causing. And then that kind of spiraled into, okay, well, like, let's take a look at some of the medications that we're putting into our bodies. So I have a couple examples for this, and I really didn't want this to go here today, but I'm going to say it anyway. It made us question vaccines. Okay. And people might stop here and be like, whoa, you're an anti-vaxxer. And I'm like, no, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. One of my children she had a vax injury. And so it kind of like spiraled into, okay, well, like this matters. Like what we put into our bodies matter. And it's not even with medication, it's with food too. But speaking of medication, I got a little example for you. So my 2-year-old recently got a UTI, which is just a urinary tract infection. It's pretty common for this age because they get like super excited and they forget to pee. Um, to me, it wasn't worth the risk of her getting a backed up infection. So like something deeper in her bladder or her kidney where that could like really, really harm her. So we decided to get her on antibiotics. Immediately, she started acting out. And I just decided to look it up. I'm like, okay, like what's going on here? And sure enough, if you know anything about antibiotics, what it does is it comes and it like completely erases your gut health. So you know what your gut health is related to, right? It's related to your mental health.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, oh, darn it. Like, why did I do this to her? But hear me out. I don't regret my decision. I feel like she needed it. But this is kind of what I'm saying with like your home being holistic. If you have to do something, combat it with something else. So like the antibiotics, we just bought a probiotic and she's probably going to be on that for about a month. Um, Simple things like that. I even think of like, I got so into looking into things so much so that I was like, what's in microfiber? like, right, like this could go on forever. And like microfiber, it's like the really soft sheets that you'd buy at Target, it's stuff that's not 100% cotton. It's microfiber is plastic. So every time that you rustle around in your really soft sheets, plastic is going up in the air and like you're breathing that in. Okay. This can cause mental health issues. This can cause reproductive harm. This can cause cancer, like all these different things. So it kind of like spun this whole idea of, okay, I want to look at things that I use on a daily basis, whether that's medication, the food we eat, the sheets, the pots and pans that we use, right? Like the nonstick stuff, like stay away from that. There's so many things that encompass this. It's just huge. And then from there, like you could spiral into, okay, sorry, let me back up a little bit. When I talk about a holistic home, I talk about mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and physical health. Okay. And a lot of times people get down the emotional, mental, and then the physical health, but they forget the spiritual, right? So we come home and like we just feeling really bogged down and we don't know why, because we just had therapy that day and we went on a run and all these things. And what's really happening is you have succumbed to the world. And so that's where I challenge people too, to like, okay, if you are still in a rut, I'm not saying that giving your problems over is going to fix absolutely everything, because like you still got some stuff to deal with, but Jesus can heal. So like, why don't you open yourself up to that too? So all in all, like living a holistic home means these external forces and these internal forces that are happening inside your home, they matter. That's all. They matter and they add up.
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed is so unique to you as well. Like, although, yes, you do the home renovations, but just how you embody a holistic home of like genuinely caring about the products that you are using in your home. And I would assume that translates too into the products you use to renovate homes, knowing that other families will be in those homes.
Yes. Yes.
It
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of that bigger picture of yeah, why that is so important to care about that because it can get very overwhelming. Like you even looking into like the microplastics or in the microfiber sheets.
Gosh, yes.
Like when I looked into the pans I was using, the nonstick, I was like, oh my gosh, like you can spiral into like just not even confusion, but like, how do you know a product is good or bad for your health? It takes that research. So, how did you kind of prevent that spiral? Or maybe you did kind of enter into like a spiral of like, oh my gosh, everything's out to get me, but rather now view it as like, I'm doing this to benefit my family's health. It's worth me maybe looking into these things.
Absolutely. So, okay, I want to preface this by saying it doesn't matter where you live. We live in a very broken world and this will never be perfect. Okay. And I'm not perfect. I bake cookies and eat cookies on a regular basis. And I have Cheez-Its sitting on the top of my fridge right now for my daughters. Okay. And myself sometimes. Um, I'm not perfect. Okay. And in America, we deal with an interesting problem where like we have access to all these things at a store, like all these materials and consumerism, and we're bringing it into our home and we're cluttering our houses and we're causing really big mental health issues. Walk into a third world country though, right? And they're dealing with health complications because they don't have clean water or just the sanitary issues are really bad, which are causing their mental health issues. So it's no matter where you're at, you will always run into this. Okay. Like this very broken world that we live in. What stopped me from spiraling though was that concept, right? That I can't be perfect in this. I can just try the best that I can. Um, Also, I took a look at things that I use every day and kind of went from there. So I kid you not, the spiral went so much so as like, oh my gosh, I can't buy vinyl peel and stick wallpaper because like what's in that? And so I had to look at like, okay, if if I could just narrow it down to daily usage, right? So like what's in your mattress, okay? Because you're spending 8 hours a day on that. What's in your pillows, things like that. What's in your pans. So like just things that you can control. And that's kind of how I help the spiral.
Yeah, and I think that's so smart too, is to take it as things you use daily, things you're touching daily, things you're, like you said, your mattress. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're sleeping on it for 8 hours daily. Those are really important things to look at. But then, like with in comparison with the vinyl peel and stick wallpaper, like yeah, you're gonna put that up in a home, but like that's not something you're touching every single day. And I think it's a lot more digestible too when people can approach it from like, okay, what am I using every day? I always think like an all-purpose cleaner. That's a huge one. Like get
Yes.
rid of the hundreds of cleaning products you have and like truly I use one. I use one cleaning product. Do you have brands, for example, that you would use for like cleaning products or brands that you love in your home right now?
Yeah. So for cleaning products, okay. So I saw this reel one time and it was like, this girl just like dumping on vinegar. And she's like, your vinegar doesn't disinfect your home like you think it does. And I'm like, that's the point. Like, I don't want my home to be disinfected. I just want it to be clean, you know? So, regardless, I went on a little soapbox there, but I clean with vinegar. And what I do is I have a fermented, like I think it's been a while. It's been in the fridge for a while fermenting, but it's like grapefruit, cuties, so like oranges, and rosemary, and I think basil. And all it is I just pour vinegar in it and I ferment it. And then every time I need more cleaner, I will put that concentrate in a glass amber jar and then I fill it just like a little bit with water. So like probably 3/4 concentrate, quarter water. And then I put in maybe like 10 to 20 drops of essential oils. And that's what I clean with.
No, I love that because I use thieves, but like that's a homemade way to make it. I love that. What essential oils do you put in it?
Yeah. So I'm a sucker for Young Living essential oils. Another brand that I have found that I really love is Eden's Garden.
Okay.
So,
I haven't heard of that one. I've also heard of Branch Basics.
ooh, I'll have to look into that one.
That one is really interesting. Their backstory is really interesting too. It's very similar to like what I feel like you talk a lot about of having a holistic home. They completely strip their home from all of like even the plastic bags that
Mm,
have, I don't know, there was one of their family members was so sensitive to that for
yeah.
some autoimmune issue he had that like they had to get rid of everything in their home that was considered toxic and like start from the basics.
Yep.
Um, and so, yeah, that's another brand. But so I guess I want to back to not even back it up, but talking about when you renovate a home, how do you do it in a way that also aligns with having a holistic home?
Yeah. So probably one of the this is debatable, okay? Because I know that these floors are like super easy and they're super trendy right now, but we stay away from like vinyl plank flooring, um, if possible, right? Like we're so lucky that the first home that we renovated had hardwood floors in it that we were able to refinish. We understand like that's a really huge deal. And then what's the difference between putting polyurethane versus vinyl floors on the ground, right? Like I don't know, probably choose your evil. But how do we keep it holistic? So, I think too that like have you ever heard of the concept of hygge?
No, I don't
Hygge,
think
higgy. It's pronounced higgy or it looks like higgy, but it's pronounced hygge.
so.
Okay. So, my friend, she introduced me to it, but it's just like how your home feels and like the environment that you create. So on our rental domain, we thought we were going to put this door on, right? It was like original to the house and it ended up not working. And I was so sad about it. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to go to Menards. We're going to have to buy a Menards door. Trust me, I'm getting to where this sounds very random, but we're gonna have to go buy a Menards door and like it's gonna look awful and all this stuff. And then I remembered that we had this really beautiful, like solid wooden door in our garage that we could utilize. So we did. And I think that for us, like if we were to come in and renovate your space, creating a holistic home for us means like putting in those little special characteristics, so much so that you walk in and you're like, this is a vibe, right? Like this isn't just a box store thing that was thrown up. This isn't a new build home. This is like a handcrafted home. And actually it's funny that I even say that, because that is our slogan, is like handcrafted homes.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
And sustainability, I think, is a big piece there.
yes.
Sustainability is holistic, right? You're using things that already were made, have
Mm,
already been created, and just repurposing them. And that's a huge, I mean, I think too, from a design standpoint, that's what I would draw me to a home is what are those unique characteristics that are original to the home or even just that era, what's original and repurposing. And I see you do a lot of that and I really admire it.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, we took out some walls and we reused all the 2x4s. So it took out all the nails and stuff. Obviously finished up the hardwood floors. There's some other things. There's one cute characteristic that we want to add into our rental that's we're going to add. So in the old 1940s cabinets, there was a pullout for like a really big cutting board. And the reason why we named her Germaine is because the guy that sold it to us, his wife's name was Germaine. So we were like, let's just name her Germaine. And I feel like that's going to be a theme. We're going to name all of our homes. But anyhow, we're going to get Germaine like carved on this cutting board, and we're just going to put it up on the fridge, like with a big magnet. So things like that where sustainability. I love that you said that, because that I think that's a big part too of why I have such a hard time like buying things new from the store, because I mean, this is very morbid, but a lot of times my thought process is, who made that?
Mhm.
Like, did that person get paid properly? Was this a child that made this? Like, I hate to think that, but it's real, and that's the world that we live in. So that's a big push too of why I like to repurpose things.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's taking that, maybe takes a little bit of extra time, like pulling out the nails from the 2x4s to reuse them. But not only are you saving money, but like you said, you are, yeah, being sustainable in how you're not just throwing that away, not just burning it, but
Right.
you're repurposing it and finding a new way to use it. And I think for you liking design, to be able to see something, even if it's a 2x4, but understand, okay, we could repurpose it in this way, that is still creativity, even though it's a 2x4.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
really utilizing everything that you have.
Hmm. Yeah. That's what we're about.
Wow. So cool. And I just think I mean, so we're renovating our house right now. We have a 1920s farmhouse.
Oh no, I'm jealous.
There's so many things in the house that I'm like, no, we can't touch that. Like, we can't get rid of that. Especially like that thick baseboard, or because the previous owners, they, in two of the three bedrooms, they took off the thick baseboard and put up like the thin kind of 80s baseboard, which just like absolutely breaks your heart, right? Like, why would you do that? Why would you touch perfection? But they did, and whatever. So we're going to try to mimic that to bring that character back in. But same with our floors. They had covered up all the original hardwoods with carpet. And as soon as I saw hardwood floors, I'm like, no way. Like, we're pulling all that up. And it took us time, like pulling out all the staples from the carpet or those strips around the edges. I'm like, it was a 2-day ordeal, but at the same time, the character that you're bringing back into a home is so much more important than just like you said, putting down vinyl floors. Because there's something that came up with that too is our feet are so porous. We think about parts of our body, like our armpits are porous too. Your feet are absorbing what your feet are touching, right? So when you do those original hardwood floors, it's like, I guess you would consider low tox way of doing it, right? Or like even people talk about grounding, like putting your feet on grass. Like what your feet touch really does matter. So I know that was like a minor example, but that instantly made me think like, okay,
Mm,
but our feet are so absorbent. So especially what you're using on the floors is really important and how
yes.
you're cleaning the floors too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really great, good way to look at that.
I
Yeah.
know. Holistic home, it encompasses so many things. So can you repeat again what makes up a holistic home for your family?
Yeah, so we take a look at spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental well-being.
And those all play a huge role. It's like you can't have one and then neglect the others.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I tell my clients all the time. So I work with a lot of secular clients, right? Which just means they don't know the Lord. Okay. Which is totally fine. Like I love to talk to them. I love to help them with their mental health. But at the very first session, I tell them, your whole mental well-being is consisted of these things, and a lot of times we neglect the spiritual. So if you get to a point where like you've done all the medication, you've done all the talk therapy, I might recommend this because it's important. Like it just, our spiritual wellness brings us so much peace and joy that is lasting, right? And the world brings us this false sense of joy, right? And when I mean spirituality, I mean Jesus. Okay, that's what I'm really talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's been such an influence on like how I counsel, and that kind of influenced my home too.
Well, and really our spirituality, like in and how I talk about too is with Jesus, not like spirituality with tarot readings and all of that, right? But like having that firm foundation in faith, right?
Mhm.
That should be the foundation for everything that we build upon. And I noticed too, when you look back on your life, there's maybe areas where that was wavering a little bit, and you can see that reflection in how you lived out your life.
Yep. You had asked me earlier, like, what are some of the products? And I thought of another thing that's kind of like a non-traditional product, like what you might think of, but we use this system Covenant Eyes on our like computers and phones and whatnot. And I know that our kids are really little, but like this is even for us too. Have you ever been like scrolling? Actually, this is probably a bad example because Covenant Eyes doesn't really like cover Instagram and stuff, but I mean it's a good example. Have you ever been scrolling and like something pops up and it's like extremely sexualized, or like I don't know, it's just something maybe you didn't want to see? That's why we put those protective factors on. In particular, it helps out with Google. So like if you were to like Google something, right? Um, but anyhow, it's just another product that we use that can help filter the things that come into our hub. But yeah, so we put that on our phones. Honestly, it was just for like good measure. I don't know. Um, Also, like our kids are getting to the point where they like want to have screen time. So we're like getting into a rhythm of like setting limits with that and stuff. And God forbid, I don't want anything to like pop up, something that they don't want to see. And I guess that's another way to like filter out your home and make it holistic, is just having those hard conversations with your kids too, before it happens, because it probably will someday. Our pastor's wife, she described it really well. She's like, you know what? Our home is our haven. Okay. Just like you said, our home is our hub. So like if I can control even just a little bit like of what's gonna come in and out, I'm gonna try my best to do that.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and even when we're talking about like those household cleaners, right? Just doing what you use daily. It's same like in your home. Although like when you go to your friend's house or when you go to school, like you can't always control what's happening there, but if you're spending a lot of your time at home, how you're nourishing your mind, body, spirit at home can then kind of, it doesn't always protect you from everywhere else you're going to go into the world, right? But at least you have that firm foundation of, yeah, just embodying that, and you have the control in your house
Mhm.
over your health and your spiritual health and your mindset and your mental health while you're at home, even though external factors might try to influence you too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like your home is like a recharging station, and if it's at a very low battery, it's not going to give you much, if anything at all. So yeah, cool. I love this so much.
No, it's been just good conversation. And a lot of the times too, and the reason, I mean, I had so many reasons for wanting to talk to you, but I feel like a lot of times when people think about having a holistic home or even renovating a home, it's just overwhelming to even think about. But you make it very digestible. And I think how you go about it too is encouraging rather than like daunting for people to have to take that on.
Cool. Well, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. Like I said, sometimes I get to the point where I'm just like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not making any money. But I hope someday that, like, I mean, obviously I've impacted your life. So that's really, really encouraging to hear. So hopefully if I just keep going, if my husband and I keep doing what we're doing, we can impact some more lives and show people that this is doable, that you can get rid of your candles from Dollar General, you know?
That's a whole other conversation. Candles.
Oh my gosh, I know. Don't get me started. But hear me out. Like I like the vibe. I love to walk into a home and be like, there's a candle, but I have been so far removed from candles that they make me sick now. So, oh my gosh, yeah.
Gosh, I know. Bath and Body Works, you love the pumpkin spice, but I I just am so sensitive to that now. And I hope people too that are listening, they might be like, you guys are literally insane, which is fine. I also want to say that's okay because I probably would have been 5 years ago, I would have been like, okay, come on, like that's a little extreme. But at the same time, like when you start creating a holistic home, and I love how you use that verbiage, you start to get sensitive to the things that are harmful.
Mhm.
And I feel like your senses are elevated, actually. Even with food, I talk about this a lot with clients, but like you get rid of all the processed sugars, you notice that like a little bit of sweet goes a long way. It's same like with the products we're using. A little bit goes a long way. So making those switches, you do become a little bit more sensitive to those things.
Yeah.
Well, Emma, I'm going to ask you our signature question. All right. So, on this podcast, we talk about our purpose and how it's not necessarily linked to a specific job or role, but rather the characteristics that you possess to, allow you to live a meaningful life. So, Emma, what would you say is your purpose?
Yeah, so I firmly believe that my purpose is a kingdom worker, for Jesus Christ. I'm here at an appointed time to be a kingdom worker for him, which just means bringing more people to Christ. And right now, I find a ton of purpose in being a mom. Not that I find, because I think purpose and identity can get mixed up, right? I don't find my identity in being a mom, but right now, my purpose is to be here for these kids, for these, I call them three sisters, because that's what they are. Just three little sisters trying to make it through life. So I feel like my husband and I in particular have been placed in their life for a very, very special reason. So I feel like that's my purpose right now. And that could change, once they're out of the house, but we're doing that for now.
Such a good answer to that question. And where can people find you on social media? Drop your Instagram handle where people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so I have an Instagram page, kind of like what I said earlier. It's at the home place 301. That's my handle. Let's see here. I really honestly don't have anything else. I have Facebook, but I post the same thing on there, so you're probably not going to find much content on that one. Let's see. My husband and I are in the works of starting up a website. So you can find us and hopefully our services through that soon, maybe by January 1st. We'll see.
Oh my gosh, how cool. Like you're really doing it.
We're doing it. We're doing it. Yeah.
Love that. Well, guys, if you are looking for any design inspo, want to know more about creating a holistic home, you have to follow her. I'll link that below in the show notes. You can find everything about them there. And then hopefully by January 1st on her Instagram, you'll be able to find her website.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Emma.
Okay. Thanks, Bailey. We'll see ya.
As always, thank you so much for being here and listening to this episode. Let's go ahead and just close it in prayer, and I will let you enjoy the rest of your day. So, dear Lord, just thank you for Emma and the knowledge that she has and shares about creating a holistic home and truly having you be the foundation of that. Please just be with whoever is listening to this episode and that they feel so encouraged to go out and create an environment that is health supporting versus one that is actually deteriorating their health, and that with your help they can distinguish what is health supporting and what is a habit that they could maybe change or replace with something else that is going to just make them mentally, physically, spiritually feel so sound and rooted in you and in their own well-being. Thank you again for this day and the opportunity to just talk so openly and have on people that truly just embody you. And it's just so incredible to know that the people I have speaking on here are so deeply rooted in their belief in you. And I hope that that just continues to inspire people along their own journey. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of today's episode, you can find me at Bailey Seaton with 2 Y's and 2 N's on Instagram, Lemon8, and Facebook. Emma's information is also going to be tagged below in the description of today's episode, so be sure to check her out. You truly will want to follow along with what they're doing. It's so fun just to see in real time the renovations that they're doing, and I just know you're going to love what she has to share. So with that, I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.